Okay, here are quiz 2 solutions for Math 112. We've got two problems here. Well, I don't know, two sections, I guess. And in the first one, you are told that there's some exponential function out there, and it goes through this point, and it goes through this point. You're asked to figure out what that exponential function is. So what you need to know is that for our purposes, an exponential function will take on this form, a times b to the x power. And so if we can figure out what a is and what b is, would be good. And it turns out we can figure that out if we use the information given. The fact that the graph goes through this point right here tells us when the x value is -3, the y value is -16. So therefore -16 must be equal to a times b to the -3rd power, whatever a and b are. And similarly, the fact that it goes through this point tells us that when x equals -1, y has to be equal to -4. So -4 must be equal to a times b to the -1 power. And here's where we use a little trick. It's called dividing equations. You say if these two things are true, then it must be the case that -16 divided by -4 is equal to a times b to the -3rd power divided by a times b to the -1st power. Okay, well -16 divided by -4 is +4. And these a's cancel out. B to the -3rd power divided by b to the -1st power is b to the -3rd minus -1 power, whatever that ends up being. Maybe I'll jump up here. And let's see, -3 minus -1 is the same as -3 plus 1, which is -2. So I get that 4 is equal to b to the -2 power. If 4 is equal to b to the -2 power, then 4 is equal to 1 over b squared. Because a negative exponent kind of means take the reciprocal of. And so if I want to solve for b, maybe I'll multiply it over to this side and get that b squared is equal to 1 over 4, and therefore b must be equal to 1/2. If you take the square root of both sides of the equation here, and recognize that the base is always a positive number. So I get the b equals 1/2. That doesn't quite give me my answer here, but I can use that fact and one of these points, whichever one you want, to figure out what a is. So to figure out what a is, maybe I'll take this equation because the numbers are smaller, and I'll say, okay, then -4 is equal to a times b, which is 1/2, raised up to the -1 power. Well, let's see, 1/2 raised up to the -1 power is the reciprocal of 1/2, which is just 2. So I get -4 equals 2a. If I divide to both sides by 2, I get that a is equal to -2. And therefore my answer is that f of x equals, instead of a, I'll write -2 times b, which we decided was 1/2, to the x power. Make that a little bit neater. Good enough. Call that good. Just a note, there's a lot of different ways you could solve. This is one way to figure out that b is equal to 1/2. You could have also raised both sides of the equation to the -1/2 power at this step. And that makes this just b on this side. And over here you have 4 to the -1/2. And 4 to the -1/2 is the same as 1 over 4 to the 1/2, which is 1 over the square root of 4, which gives you the same answer of 1/2. So maybe that gets you there quicker. At any rate, you should come up with this answer regardless. You could check your answer by plugging these values of x and y back in. But I'm not going to bother because I feel comfortable that I did things correctly. Okay, this one, determine the value of the following logarithmic expressions. It turns out that every single one of these things is equal to some number. Now we just got to figure out what those numbers are. So this first one, log base 3 of 9. It turns out that log base 3 of 9 is just equal to 2. And you don't got to tell me why that's true, but just as an FYI, that's true because if we wrote this in exponential form, we would say 3 to the 2nd power is equal to 9. And using that same logic, log base 9 of 3, turns out that's going to be equal to 1/2. And the logic there is that 9 to the 1/2 power is equal to 3. Square root of 9 equals 3. Down here, this is asking me to what power must I raise the number 10 to get 1 divided by 1,000. Well, to get the reciprocal part, to get the number down in the denominator here, it's going to be negative. Now I'm going to get 10 to turn into 1,000. 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. So it turns out this is going to be negative 3, which either you can just kind of see and write down as your answer, or you can justify it by saying 10 to the negative third power is equal to 1 over 10 to the third power, which is equal to 1 over 1,000. Continuing, log base 5 of, this one's getting a little bit crazy, 1 divided by the cubed root of 25. Wow. Okay, essentially what this question is asking me is 5 raised up to some power is equal to 1 divided by the cubed root of 25. Well, to answer that, first of all, note this thing's down on the denominator, so my answer must be negative. To get the cubed root, I must have a 3 in the denominator, but to change 5 into 25, I must have a 2 in the numerator. So what I get is that this log is equal to negative 2/3. And then, I guess this should have been in green. Yeah, whatever. Okay, part E, natural log of 1. I don't know, trick question, easy question, hard question, I don't know what this is, but at any rate, the answer is 0. And the reason that's true is natural log of 1 is the same as saying, maybe I'll write this out, it's saying the log base E of 1 is equal to what? So if I wanted to think about this in exponential form, I'd say e to what power is equal to 1? And the answer is, well, e to the 0 power is equal to 1, so therefore my answer over here is 0. Finally, natural log of e, this is saying the log base e of e is what? Well, it turns out it's 1 because it's asking you the question, to what power must I raise e to make it equal to e? Well, the answer is raise it to the first power. That's how you keep it the same. So what you get are these answers over here. Here's some justification that really you don't have to have on your quiz, but I wrote it just so there's a little bit more on my solutions. So I guess that's that. I'll stop this video here.